Well, this is the In Show, and I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We got another great show. We have in-studio guests, Mr. David Alspach and Mr. John Duffy. Gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Excited to have you guys here. Because I know you guys have multiple projects, but one of the main ones I want to talk about is the flag. The set that we all met on.
Yeah.
But, before we get into that, I want to talk a little bit about you personally, your stories, how you got involved in the movies, how you got involved in the certain projects that you're doing, how you just developed to become who you are. So it's a 1-hour therapy session.
Be on the couch.
We even have a couch. But Dave, let me start with you. I know we had met, kind of briefly, on the set of The Flag,
right.
a movie you were producing. You wrote it, am I correct? You also starred in it. And this is the first chance that we've really gotten to talk about, the subject matter, which is, I think, near and dear, should be to everyone's heart.
That's the object of the project. Yes.
Right. And tell me a little bit about that in particular. The Flag. It's about a flag burning on a college campus, and you happen to be there. Am I correct? And caught this?
Yeah, it was a while back. I was on a university campus that will remain unnamed at this point, and I witnessed a couple of students in a protest, and they were going to burn them. They were going to burn the flag, and that incensed me. It actually pissed me off, and I confronted them, and needless to say, the flag went unburned, and everything was fine. And again, taught them a little lesson, I hope.
Right.
To respect the flag because it's the symbol of their country.
Was it as part of a protest? Were they just using it to get attention? What was the reason behind that?
They were protesting something that was going on, I think, with the local government or something. I didn't even listen to hear what was going on. All I saw was them throw a pretty nice sized American flag down on the ground and
right.
Splash it with they had a gasoline can like you use for your lawnmower.
Right, the little ones.
Yeah. He was splashing some gas on it, and then he started with a bullhorn, and people started gathering around, and I just said, "The hell with this," and I went right through the crowd and stopped them.
That's fantastic. I'm sure every proud American should know that the American flag should not touch the ground. Ever. And that's the only case where you can burn it or you have to put it away. Am I correct?
There's a special ceremony that you go through. A lot of your American Legion posts, when the flag is to be retired in that way,
right.
They go through a special ceremony where they burn the flag.
Yes.
And I think there's some Boy Scout troops, if I'm not mistaken, that also have that have been able to do that as well.
Oh, fantastic! Wow, so some groups around the country, some Boy
Yep.
Scout groups that you can actually go through the ceremony.
Yeah, it's a very honorable ceremony.
Right, I know it's long and involved and very patriotic. And I know for you personally, it's something close to your heart because you were mentioning that you were in the Army.
I was.
Special Forces.
Correct.
Was it a long career, obviously, just being that far?
No, actually, I went in the military, believe it or not, I thought I'd make it a career. I was 18 at the time, and ended up I wanted to be in the ski troops. And in order to be in the ski troops, you have to go through Special Forces training, which I didn't realize at the time, which meant jump school and all the training. And got excited at one point when I thought I was being sent to the 10th Special Forces in Germany back then, at that time.
Yes.
And while I was home on leave, I got orders telling me to report to Oakland, California for duty in the Ryukyu Islands. Turned out to be Okinawa.
Yes.
And I ended up in jungle warfare training and things of that nature and ended up in Vietnam.
Wow.
So I never saw a pair of skis.
But you saw basically everything else.
Absolutely, yes.
Amazing. So your career lasted quite a few.
About 4 years total.
4 years. Wow.
I enlisted for 3, and then I re-enlisted, and I was able to get an early out my fourth year in.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. So here you are serving your country. Here you are living a productive life. And then on a college campus where there should be, freedom of thought, they're burning something that's so close to you.
Well, they have. Well, the bottom line is, under their First Amendment rights, they have the perfect right to do just that.
Right.
But when they do something of that nature, especially with the American flag, they're disrespecting every military person, men and women, who laid down their life for this country, fighting to protect that flag.
Right.
And that's my rub. It's a symbol of your country.
Right.
You disrespect it. You disrespect every veteran that ever walked or put on a uniform.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And after that incident, did the concept of the story of the flag, did it come up right away, or did something?
No, many years later.
Oh, many years later.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there another incident that happened,
No,
or was it just came to mind?
No, it was. I was going through a divorce about, I guess this was around 12 years ago, and I was talking to a friend who happened to be a shrink, who was my neighbor actually, and he said, you got to sit down. We had a few local sessions at the local bar, and we got to talking, and he gave me some exercises. He says that might help you, and and in doing so, told me to write a letter to myself about something that bothered me, and I don't know where it came from. All of a sudden, that incident came up. Oh. So I wrote a couple paragraphs and I showed it to him. He says, "This looks pretty good."
Wow!
And from that was born the story, the script,
right,
and the film.
And the film. And John, I know you were the director of the wonderful film. How did you and David meet?
We met years ago in a film networking group called The Exchange up in the Valley, and then we reconnected again at another group, events. I can't remember the exact event, but some things that Gary Sinise was involved in, and we got connected into that. And reconnected and started. He had this project which I started out as a line producer, which is what I do, and then the original director fell out, and so I said, well, I got it, let's do it. And so I directed it, and we started out and we shot the first phase, and then we went back later and shot the narrative, the story that you saw the day that you were on set, where we were shooting, which is that story about the flag and the university. So there's two pieces to it that we filmed, the educational part and then this narrative fictional part based on the story that Dave wrote.
Oh, wonderful. So did you, when you read the script, you said you were the line producer.
Right.
So the producer had brought you in, or did Dave bring you in?
Dave brought me in to line produce it.
Okay.
So I was organizing the whole shoot.
Gotcha.
We got all the pieces together.
Okay.
And then when the director fell out, I just stepped up that day and ended up directing the first thing with Jack Scalia that we shot at the National Cemetery in Wilshire Boulevard and Westwood area. And we shot that, and then we went back later to shoot the narrative fictional piece that we did together.
And that day at the school.
Correct.
Now, have you ever had a similar experience like Dave has with the flag? Someone desecrating it, or what have you?
Well, my journey's a little different than Dave's. My dad was an Irish immigrant, and he joined the military and fought in the Philippines in World War II, came back and died when I was 4, so I really didn't get to know him. I mean, I've seen pictures of him in his uniform, but I never really knew what his life was. In the 60s, I kind of went down the path of the students that Dave is talking about and went to, I was involved in a lot of the protest movements and radical activities, and so while I never personally participated in doing something like that, I was involved in situations similar to that from that side. So later in life, with some age, maturity, and hopefully wisdom, kind of had a what I would say a born-again American experience. Kind of came back home and reunited with my dad in the sense that I went to Memorial Day at Westwood Cemetery. They had an event there, and felt like I had kind of reconnected with my father and his memory and what that meant. So I kind of got a different perspective on life. And I think Dave's perspective is a perspective that I carry now is what is valuable. My parents both came from Ireland as immigrants, and they gave me the American dream. And when I was young, I kind of didn't realize that I had the American dream. I kind of was an alienated kid, and finally realized how blessed I was to be in this country and how great it is to have this opportunity.
Right.
So that's who I am today.
Wow, fantastic, fantastic. So it was a very personal journey for you. So where David had to confront an outside individual, you had to confront someone internally. Was it a difficult struggle, or was it like, oh, it just makes sense? I'm older now. Oh, I see.
No, it was different moments. I think, like in life, if you're open,
Yeah.
you have these light bulb moments. And one of my first light bulb moments I remember was I was at a motivational seminar with a guy, Tony Robbins, and he had a speaker who was was basically a prisoner of war in Vietnam, an American soldier.
Wow.
And he spoke about his experience for the years that he was a prisoner of war. Now, I had been, like I said, a left-wing radical, and so when the guy first started speaking, I wasn't very open to that point of view.
Right.
But I listened, and all of a sudden I started to realize that what I believed was based on not experience, not on practical facts. It was based on someone's belief system that I had adopted.
Right.
And I started to hear this guy's experience, and a light bulb went off, and I realized, I didn't realize it was like that. I didn't realize the Vietnamese tortured American soldiers. I didn't realize what was going on that side. And so that began to get me to start shifting. And when I started shifting, I started being open to other ideas. And as I got hit with other ideas, I started to rethink, well, why did I believe this? What got me to believe that? And do I really believe it today?
Right.
And so I started to go through a question. And then 9/11, of course, was probably the final thing for like a lot of people in this country.
Right.
It kind of opened up my mind. I was a New Yorker, and when that happened, it made me reflect on everything that I believed in the past.
Right.
Kind of had a new reawakening.
Right. And that's great. Well, you summed it up so beautifully. That's someone. It sounds like someone who's gone through a journey of reflection, and it's come out different at the end.
I'd love to see a film script written about his arc.
Yeah.
The crossover.
It's true.
Well,
But
there's a lot of them I'm leaving out, but yeah,
It would make a great story.
it is a great story because it literally you were from one side and you arced like the way David said all the way to the other side.
Well, Dave and we always goof. And when I recently spoke to some film students, and they asked me the guy who asked me to speak to them asked me to share the story, because I was also, it was pretty far. I was a Maoist leader. I led a trip to China, met with the Chinese communists. I was really
Wow.
on the other side.
You were
Trust
on
me.
the other side.
I was on the other side.
So being this close to David,
It's
you're
a big
really
conversion, and we're best of friends, and I
Yes,
think it's been a journey.
wow,
Truly
wow.
a journey.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's wow. Amazing. Gentlemen, just want to thank you for coming in. We got to take a quick commercial break. Still got plenty of time to talk about the flag, your other projects, all kinds of stuff. Thank you again. Appreciate it.
Okay.
All right. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you're listening to The In Show. And we have in-studio guests, Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy. And we're going to have a lot more of their story in our next segment. So you hang in there. We'll be right back. And this is The In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. We got a couple great guests. We have Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy in studio talking about their films, some of their previous beliefs and such. And tell me how the project, The Flag, is going now. I know you're already in post-production. Is it pretty much complete? Is it almost there?
It's almost there. We're in post-production. We need to raise some more funds so we can get some decent music, get some, the editing and everything done. So it's just,
Right.
first-class quality film when we get done with it. But we're in that process right now. So.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. So you're going to start? Yeah, please.
Yeah, we just shot a little Indiegogo appeal that we're going to put up to help raise their funds. That should be up soon.
Okay.
And we're finishing editing the actual narrative piece. Now we're also working on finishing the educational piece as well. And we have some plans as far as being able to enter it into the GI Film Festival.
Nice.
We have the Pentagon channels. They go out to 30 million people. That's a source for where we're going to air it, and a couple
Nice.
other places as well as film festivals. So
Yeah.
One of the things I wanted to mention, though, once the film has completed the film festival cycle and all those screenings and whatnot, we're going to put it, package it, and put it out for retail. We're looking for a distributor so we can
Oh,
sell
beautiful.
it, and wherever
Okay.
across the country. And 50% of all the profits that come out of that are going to be donated to the Gary Sinise Foundation,
Yes.
American Soldier Network, Children of Fallen Veterans, and Disabled Veterans.
Ah, beautiful.
So that's, and then we also have hopefully a plan to take it around the country and screen it in various cities and raise money for local veterans charities in those cities. And that's again before the retail release.
Okay. Are you going to be doing fundraisers for those endeavors, or is that kind of all inclusive with what you're doing now?
Well, we'd hope to have some product sponsorship of that, and so we're going to work on that. We're also going to work with Operation Gratitude, which sends packages to the troops.
Yes.
They're having their big event in December, which is going to be, I believe, the 1,000,000th package that they've sent over to the troops, and they're going to have a whole Vietnam Wall, recreation of the Vietnam Wall up at the Armory in Van Nuys. And so they're going to have an all-day event, and we're going to hope to screen it there. And they're going to also work with us on maybe getting product sponsorships to be able to take the project out.
Wow,
We
that's
need those corporate sponsors.
Yes.
Get that film out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's needed, especially for all the wonderful benefits that go along with it. And what have I know you have a few members who are in the military that are in the cast,
Oh, yeah.
but what has been the response of the non-military members? How do they feel when they were listening to what was going on and watching the project?
There weren't that many our entire crew
Yeah, right,
was military, were veterans.
right.
And thanks to the LA Film School,
Yes,
they helped us quite a bit. Amber and George Ohan and Amber Chayap, my hat's off to them, and a big
Yes.
thank you, because they really pushed us over the top.
right.
All the crew are veterans who are going through the school to learn how to work in the film industry
Right.
on the production side, and every one of them volunteered their services.
That's fantastic.
Every actor in this film so far has volunteered their services, and we've got some pretty nice names
Yes,
attached to this film.
right. That's fantastic. So the overall, I can't imagine that there'd be otherwise. That the overall thought of the film is wonderful. Do you feel that it conveys the message that it should? The cast and crew. I know you guys see it from your perspective. How do they see it? Do they think that the message is there, that they understand, that it would be open to?
Well, I believe so. What we shot, and you saw the piece we were filming, the fictional story of Dave's experience, which
Yes.
is captured in that narrative, and the actors in that are one piece of it. Danny Roebuck, a bunch of other actors who were actually Jay Christopher, Jim Peake, did that piece. But prior to that, we had already shot months before a section where Jack Scalia did a whole walk through the cemetery and basically talk about what the flag means and what it means that people gave their lives for the flag. The Boy Scouts were there planting flags as we did the walkthrough.
Right.
And then we did that day, and we continued to we shot little segments with people saying, what does the flag mean to you? And now a lot of the people who responded in those 30-second, 1-minute segments, some of them are military veterans, some of them are not. Some of them are actors, some of them are celebrities, and they basically just talked about what the flag means to them and
Right.
why this project is important to them. So that's all going to be cut together as well.
Wow.
So I think it does have does impact people. In the question you asked earlier, for the people who are non-veterans like myself and a few other non-veterans, it does provide both an educational to us as well as providing some entertainment that's emotionally moving. And
Right.
I think hopefully we captured that throughout both segments of the project.
I had a couple of the younger ones. One name comes to mind, Olivia, who was an assistant for us,
Yes.
and she did a fantastic job. she actually was one of the several people that came up to me and said, "Thank you for allowing me to be a part of this."
Wow.
And she's definitely not military.
Right.
She's a proud American.
Yes. Yes.
And then they had those moments like I had an opportunity, like I interviewed this guy I knew from Operation Gratitude, Georgie Baby Jacobs, and he was in the
That's right.
Korean War, and I got him on camera, and he's a very talkative guy. He has 1,000 stories, if not 1,000,000. But I asked him to go to a place emotionally about his experience from that war and also in the VA that he hadn't touched in a long time. And he did go there and he broke down crying.
Right.
And he was very moved, and it took a while. I sat with him after the filming, and he just talked to me about, how I took him to a place and reached a place that he had buried a long time ago.
Right.
And he was just so moved
Yes.
to be able to share it.
Right.
So that's kind of what we were blessed to be able to capture some of those moments as well, and hopefully the audience will get it as well.
Right. That's, you brought up something great. With a lot of military movies that you see, it's always about the drama. It's not necessarily realistic. I get that from a lot of military people. Yeah, it was a good film, but, being there, that's not how it was. Yeah. Your movie is modern day. It's someone who, has gone through this. Do you think that a veteran will have a connection with you in regards to
Certainly.
have people talk to you about that? I mean, just knowing military men, knowing that they have that feeling, how do you think it will come across to them when they see you in the movie?
I think they'll relate.
Right away?
Totally. Absolutely.
Yes.
If they don't, then there's something wrong with them. They're not as patriotic as they pretend to be.
Right.
No, it definitely will touch a lot of veterans, and I'm hoping that a lot of veterans will start talking about it, so we can get it out there.
Right.
But also, as a directing it with Dave, and particularly Dave's performance, because in the narrative pieces, he's the lead character. He had to go to a place, and you see that in his eyes, and
Right.
you see him going through it. And it was a place he didn't want to go. Once
Yes.
again, as an
Yes.
actor, he didn't want to relive those moments.
Right.
He didn't want to get into that dark spot that he had been in many, many years ago.
Right.
But he did, because
Right.
he needed to do it for the performance, and that hopefully will be then conveyed to the audience, that honesty of what he was feeling and what it meant to him, and hopefully we captured that, and
Right.
I think we did, and I think his performance, it takes you through that, what you would feel if you were in that situation. How would you feel?
Right.
And I think we got that from Dave.
You gave it that authenticity. So did it?
Whatever you want to call it.
It was real.
As an actor would say, it was very organic.
So I'm trying to remember the I think his name wasn't it Adam, the young guy who was who you were talking to, the actor.
Oh yeah,
The protester.
Yeah, the protester. I think
Yeah,
his name was.
protester, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was Adam. So the fear we see in him, that was true when he was standing across from you.
Well, I can embellish. I embellished on it's a film.
Yeah.
I took a little writer's license. In reality, in the actual incident, when I picked up the can of gasoline in the actual incident,
Right.
and I splashed
Yes.
both of them with the gasoline and said, "You light that flag, I light you," they ran. There was no major.
There was no
They
conversation.
looked at me, turned white, and ran.
And a funny moment, the other actor who
Ricky.
Ricky
Yeah.
is in the military presently. He's
Yes.
active duty, and
Yes.
so playing the protester was an interesting experience for him.
Playing
You know
the
what I mean?
opposite side of what he really is. Yeah,
Right,
great job,
right.
too.
He is very patriotic.
Yes.
All right. Well, I got to take a quick commercial break. Dave, John, again, wonderful stories. So much more time to talk about, so many other things. Again, thank you for taking the time. Appreciate it. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you're listening to The In Show, and we have in-studio guests, Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy, and we're going to be talking more about their film careers and upcoming projects in our next segment. So you hang in there. We'll be right back. And this is The In Show. And I'm your host, Gus Summers. Good to be back with you today. That's right, we are broadcasting live from the Sunset Strip in the entertainment capital of the world, Hollywood. And we have a great great in studio. Well, I was going to say guests, but I'm sorry, it needs to be plural. Guests in studio, Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy, and we were talking about their production of The Flag and a little bit about your personal lives as well. But I want to give you a chance to not mention any websites, anything you got going. I know you're going to be doing your Indiegogo soon, and you have a website now for The Flag. Am I correct?
We have a donation site. The website is www.theflagdonations.weebly.com. And they'll be able to see the sizzle reel with Jack Scalia's on that site.
Oh, great. Okay.
And then, every little bit helps. We want to get this film
Right. Get it out there.
And be seen.
Yes.
And if anybody who's listening or get to listen to this in the future, if anybody has any suggestions to help us with post-production, with sound, music, or with promotion, distribution, anybody who wants us to come speak on another venue, anything that we can do to promote the project, feel free to contact us and let us help in any way we can, because it takes a lot of people to be able to make this a reality. So we'd appreciate any help we could get.
Okay, wonderful. At the same websites, I know, John, you have a Facebook. I know
Facebook,
Dave also.
Yeah, I'm on John Duffy. Anybody can contact me on my Facebook page and link up with me, and then we'll stay in touch through that.
For me as well.
Oh, wonderful. Fantastic. I do want to talk a little more about The Flag. John, you were talking about how you had this wonderful change of perspective. I'm going to have you go back a little bit into your previous life.
Go back, way back.
I made a drink.
First round's on me. Looking at it from a 20-year-old John, when you were, in your activities back then, if that person was here now on this set or talking to Dave about what he's talking about, what do you think, what would you have said? Was it similar to what the young person was saying before Dave doused him with gasoline? Would it have been the same thing that the young man was saying to Dave? Because I know your perspective was a little more in depth. You actually were very active. You actually were a reader. You just weren't following a cause. It's something you believed in. From that perspective, what would you have told Dave?
Well, who I was at that time was at that age, I was my best way to describe it, an alienated kid. I mean, I dropped out of high school when I was 15 years old. Didn't have any real role models for success. I mean, I grew up in the South Bronx. There was only a couple of white families in the South Bronx. Most of my friends were black and Puerto Rican, so I had a unique experience growing up. Most people saw the South Bronx as one of the worst ghettos in America. To me, it was just a neighborhood, and I thought I had a pretty decent childhood. I didn't realize it was as bad as it seemed. Fort Apache was our neighborhood was the first part. Fort Apache came later, so we were the first Fort Apache in that sense. So I grew up in a very I grew up on the streets, and that was my environment. And then I started to get involved in radical politics. I hung out with the Black Panthers, the Black Muslims. All this was in my neighborhood. My brother was older than me. He got involved in it. So I got influenced, and I read a lot of radical literature. And at that age, you think you know everything. Now, for a high school dropout kid who only read a few things, I thought I knew everything about the world, obviously. And I was brilliant, and I could debate anybody about everything, but sure. And I remember a time, a little story, because it does relate to this. I had one buddy, a Puerto Rican friend, who went and joined the Marines and ended up fighting in Vietnam. And while he was gone, I got caught up in all the radical politics, and I was this, big radical kid. And he came back, and we were hanging out after he had come back, and he was kind of messed up from the experience. And I didn't fully know the story, but we all knew, all his friends knew that he was really traumatized. So we were playing pool, me and him, and, I started arguing with him about the war and telling him how the war was wrong, and, I knew it all. And he told me a story. He stopped, and he got very angry, and he said, let me tell you what happened to me over there. And he said, the first night, they sent out 4 troops to guard the perimeter. and he went out and had to bring them back, and their throats were slashed, and these were his friends. The second night, they sent out 4 more troops, and their throats were slashed, and he had to bring them back. The third night, he was part of that 4, and he stayed up all night waiting to die, pretty much. So he said, and then he gave me his perspective, and he said, I think you better shut the F up about this. And I, at that time, at least had enough common sense to say, yeah, I think I better. So that was the end of that conversation with him. So I think that's probably what Dave would have said to me if we were having that conversation back then.
It might have gotten
it might have got worse. So, but that's what I believed at the time, and I could have swore I was right and I knew everything.
Right. Right.
Oh well.
Because you do have an interesting perspective. Going from one to the other. Nowadays, is it similar? Because now you see the vast gulf between left and right, or whatever you want to call it. In my perspective, it doesn't seem to be the same as it was back in the 60s and early 70s. Today, there is a gulf, but keeping it short, I don't know if I would equate it the same. How about you, coming from that era and that time frame? Do you see it the same? Do you see it just as left and right, conservative and liberal, or is it truly different?
It's different and it's the same. It's different and it's the same. I mean, it's different back in that era, at least for us and me, as a high school dropout in particular. A lot of us got caught up in believing that communism was a utopia.
Right.
And at that time, there wasn't a proof of what it really was, because there wasn't enough time to see what it was.
Right.
So a lot of people got caught up going, Cuba's beautiful and China's perfect, and these are utopias.
Yes.
And then as time went on, and even myself, I realized that those utopias, Cambodia, etc., were not utopias, but they were nightmares. They were living hells.
Right.
The killing fields, all the people who got killed by the communists in Cambodia, you realize that wasn't a utopia, and what they were presenting was fake. It was, behind the curtain was a whole different reality than what they were.
Right.
But at that time, a lot of people got caught up in believing that because they didn't get to see. Nowadays, you have less people who believe that communism is a utopia because there's been a lot more proof of the reality of what is produced in the real world.
Media
But you're still,
propaganda.
and it's a failure. It's
Right.
on every level, economically, freedom, you name it. On every
Right.
level, it's just a failure.
Right.
But nowadays, there's still the division, and it's a division, I think, between emotion and logic.
Yes.
It's like Star
Nice.
Trek. It's between Spock and the emotional guy, the Irish guy, who's like all,
Scotty.
Scotty, being me, being Irish, I'm this guy. I'm the emotional guy in the old days. But it's like that. It's that split between emotion and logic.
Right.
Some people they think emotionally, and other people think logically, and it's
Right.
like, what's the results? Nowadays, as I've gotten older, I'm about like, we all got good intentions, but what
Right.
do you accomplish? What's the result? That's more
Yes.
important to me than what your intentions are.
Right.
Everybody got good intentions, mostly.
Yeah,
Not
right.
everybody, but mostly.
Yeah.
But what are your results? If you produce bad results, I don't care if you had good intentions. It
Right.
doesn't work for
Right.
me.
Because it's interesting. It was perspective from both of you, please. Talking about young people, it feels like they don't understand the definition of terms and the progression of things. You have a free society on one side and communism on the other. Those are the two extremes. But in the middle, there are roads that lead that way: fascism, socialism, and the ultimate is communism. And it seems like they don't quite understand that road, and they'll throw, well, we're liberal, we're progressive. Yeah, but you're leaning, towards that way. And if you call them a fascist, they'll say, what? Who? We're not. We don't know what that is.
I totally believe that side of the fence is totally emotional. It's all emotion.
Right.
Where the other side of the fence is based on logic and reality and real numbers, if you want to put it that way.
Right.
There's nothing wrong with being emotionally involved in your country or your city or your family,
Yes.
but there's a point where you have to realize that once you get into the real world, you got to step back. I just had an argument recently with a friend who's more interested in some kind of spider that's might be extinct, while her local town
Yes.
where she lives is falling apart politically or
Economically. or
environmentally,
whatever. Yeah.
economically. That's the
Yeah,
word.
yeah.
Economically.
Right.
And I said, why? We'll be around. I mean, the Earth will be here even long after we're gone.
Right.
Even if we destroy it.
Yes.
But right now is what matters for our kids, our grandkids,
Right.
and in the future, and their future, economically.
You think that's what? Well, propaganda. That's exactly what it is. It hits the emotion. And do you believe that? Well, we all know that emotion runs us, and logic gets turned off. Do you think that you have to be slightly emotional to be able to get a conversation going, or do you have to be strictly logical? Do you think they'll?
No, you have to. I mean, we're all emotional, and an appeal. When you appeal to people, you appeal to people's emotions. I mean,
Right.
that's kind. I did sales trainings. I've done a lot of things in my life. I say I'm on my 5th lifetime, and I hope I have a couple more left. But in sales, people buy on emotion, and then they justify it with logic.
Yeah, right.
So that's how you make a buy-in decision. Is what you. And then politics is very the same. People vote for a candidate usually on emotion,
Yes.
and then they justify it with all these logical reasons as why the candidate's better than the other candidate. Whether that's true or not, whatever. But that's how we are as humans. So yeah, you have to be emotional. I just think the thing is, for me, it's about producing results. I grew up in the South Bronx.
Right.
A lot of programs were created to supposedly help people in the South Bronx, but
Right.
yet we're still in the same place 40 years later with the same kind of poverty. Look at what just happened in Detroit.
Right.
And Detroit has gone bankrupt. And so all the billions that have been spent to change that have accomplished nothing.
Right.
So at some point you have to say, well, if you have accomplished nothing, that's a failure. When are you going to do something different? Or are you going to keep doing the same thing, hoping you're going to get a new result by the same thing?
Right.
It's not going to happen. So you need new answers, and you need people willing to say the challenges are tough. There's no simple answer to how we change these things. But what it'll take is people really working together and not just getting stuck on, well, this is what we believe and this is what we believe. I want to know, what are you going to do to make the result, and how you're going to make the change.
Right.
And if you don't know the answer, say, I don't know the answer, let's try and figure it out.
Nice.
Don't tell me you know the answer, because you don't, because
Right.
you haven't achieved it. So don't act like you know what to do, because you haven't done it.
Right. I guess the answer is always we'll borrow more money, spend more money, and then get in debt, and we figure it out later.
But it doesn't work.
It never works.
And it hasn't.
That's right. That's right. I think we got the answers right here.
The problems of the world.
That's it. All right, gentlemen, time for a quick commercial break. We've still got one more segment, so I'm excited to get started with that. Appreciate you coming in again. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you've been listening to The In Show. And we have in-studio guests, Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy, and we're going to have more of them in our last segment, so hang in there. We'll be right back. This is Gus Summers, and you're listening to The In Show. We have in-studio guests, Mr. John Duffy and Mr. Dave Alspach, and we've been talking about their production of the flag, their early careers, philosophy, theology, everything. We're just throwing everything out there today. I think we have the kitchen sink somewhere around here, right? But do want to give you a chance to mention some new coming projects. I know you guys are very prolific in your work. You're always doing a little something. What do you got going today, Dave?
Well, I've got a script that I wrote, an action-adventure film, and here we go with the veterans. It's called Veterans Day,
Nice.
and it's about a group of elderly veterans, let's say, my age group, which I'm only old and not really.
48.
Yeah. At any rate, it's about a group of black ops guys who get back together to go to Mexico to rescue a friend who's been kidnapped by a drug cartel. They're very successful in their mission, and in the interim find out that the drug cartels are smuggling terrorists and weapons into the country along with the drugs and the immigrants. So they keep going on fishing trips and blowing up the bad guys and disrupting their way of life. And they've got the Homeland Security, they've got the FBI, the drug cartels, and several terrorist cells trying to find out who's doing this. And it's just a bunch of older, mild-mannered guys slipping back into their little part of the world and having their beers and a good time in between fishing trips.
Mild manner as in respect to like Sylvester Stallone, Chuck Norris types. We're a little more quiet.
I've talked to Frank Stallone about being in the film.
Oh, nice.
I haven't got a commitment from him yet. Jack Scalia's on board, a great actor by the name of Basil Hoffman.
Basil Hoffman.
Basil's great, a terrific guy and a good friend, and who was again Danny Roebuck. There's a great role in there
Wow.
for Danny. Another good friend who I've talked to, actor Scott Michael Campbell, another well-known actor, and I'm just trying to put the whole thing together now, and then we have to go out and raise the money, and that's the hard part.
Always
But
is.
it's a great premise, it's a great script, and I've gotten a lot of good coverage on it from some. We have a director as well, I mentioned, by the name of Bill Sachs.
Nice.
And Bill, again, has, a terrific resume
Wow.
behind him. He'll be directing.
And let me be the first to say thank you for writing such a script that's away from what I like to call the Gerber babies. Because I can only watch these 20-year-olds save the world, so many times. I mean, let's have the real men be representative there.
I can do that. I have several other scripts, but they're still in the works.
Fantastic. John, how about you?
Well, a few things. One, if this happens, I'll be working with Dave on that for sure. So that's one thing as a
Fantastic.
line
Line
producer.
producing, yeah.
Wow.
That's one thing. Another opportunity that's arose for me just recently. A good friend, former Navy SEAL Vernon Mortensen, runs a film program down at John Paul Catholic University in the San Diego area. It's an MBA in film.
Wow.
So I spoke to the class, and he just got me on as an adjunct professor to go down there and teach them film production next quarter.
Wow.
So that's a big leap from the kid who dropped out of school at 15 to be an adjunct professor. So many thanks to him, and I look forward to teaching the students what I know. So that's one piece. And then I got a bunch of other film projects that I'm involved in as a line producer, but one that stands out that I'm hoping to get put together is based on a true story, which is about this boxer who fought in the championship on the last Muhammad Ali card, and the movie is called They Call Me Termite. And he ended up during the Iraq War, true story, being caught up, and his friend said, can you come over and exterminate the military bases in Iraq, because he was an exterminator. And he told his wife, and he said, I think this is a calling from God, and his wife said, I think you're crazy. So he ended up going over to Iraq and exterminating the military bases, and while he was doing that, they found out about his boxing career and everything, and they asked him, somebody came to him from the Provisional Authority and said, hey, Termite, can you what's the odds that you could put together an Iraqi boxing team for the Olympics in 10 months? And he said, the odds are 1,000,000 to 1. And they said, great odds, go do it. So he started teaching these Iraqi kids during the Iraq War boxing. Al-Qaeda put a hit out on him to kill him. He trained the kids, and he took them to the Olympics, and one of the kids won his first fight and beat the North Korean in the Olympics. True story, he was a mentor to these Iraqi kids. It's a great project and just a real uplifting story about somebody, an average guy, boxer from Texas, who goes over and does something good to change people's lives.
Yeah.
So we're hoping to get that put together and take that out there too, because it's an inspirational story.
That is. That's a great story. Was that? It sounds familiar. Was it out in the news, or did you post it on your site?
No, it was out maybe 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
When it happened, when it got a lot of heat on it, but
Okay.
nobody wanted to make it at the time.
Yeah.
Because,
Okay.
the controversy around the war and everything. But
Right.
at this point, the timing's right,
Yes.
the story's great, and once again, everybody that we've given it to, the producer who actually been with it for over 10, 12 years, Fred Cunit, he has basically, everybody who reads it, no matter what their political perspectives, just love the story.
Yeah.
I mean, we've had people
Fantastic.
from the Doha Film Commission in the Arab world read it and say, it made me cry. So, I mean, it's really a moving story.
Yeah, I mean, the great crossing cultures and barriers and what have you. It is a great story. So it looks like it could be made, but it looks pretty good.
Well, we're trying to, get the interest to get the financing and put it together. We've had actor interest and all that, but the main thing, like Dave said about his, is it's always about trying to raise the financing, and that's the hard part. Making the movie, I've line produced over 25 movies, and that's easy.
Right.
Getting the money and getting the distributor, that's hard.
Of course. That's, if you don't mind, if I like to touch on that a little bit. Raising money, period, nowadays is hard for any film. More difficult, less difficult for a military type of movie of any kind?
Depends on the story.
Okay, so it's just, again, good story.
Yeah, good story, regardless of what it is. When you consider some of the films that have come out that aren't military, I won't mention any names, but there's some movies out there today that I'm surprised people spend the money to go see.
Right.
I mean, and the thing that bothers me, or confuses me is, where did they get the money? They got the money.
Right. I have a great story
I
here.
have a better story.
But it's always hard, and Dave's right. I mean, it all starts with the story. If you got a good story that's entertaining, that an audience will want to see,
Right.
then it's going to make it easier.
Yes.
If you have a story that's just not there yet, or is just weak,
Right.
or if it's preachy, or you're trying to sell a message as opposed to tell a good story,
Right.
then audience not going to want to get it, and investors are not going to want to risk their money. So
Right.
it always comes down to a good story.
Yes. So with the movies, John, let me ask you before I ask Dave, how many military movies have you done, similar to The Flag or like with a military theme?
None.
No, oh, okay. Strictly Hollywood type movies.
I've done
action, dramas.
action, comedy, horror, but I did have experience, which kind of was also part of their shaping for me. I don't know how many years, 4 or 5 years ago. I got a chance to line produce some training videos for the U.S. Marine Corps.
Oh, nice.
And so I got to go down to Quantico and go down to Camp Pendleton and meet some incredibly amazing young men and women who are going through boot camp, and their instructors and the lieutenants that were involved with them. And that gave me for the first time, a real education on a human level, what it's like to be a military person up close.
Right.
So working with them was I would say one of the best experiences I had in my life, having a chance to work with those people to produce those training videos for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
But outside of that, my Hollywood stuff is like whatever comes my direction. I gotta, take advantage of it and make it happen.
Right. Is it pretty much the same as a normal production, except the movie is just about has a military theme? It's no different. I figure the emotion may be different or something
Yeah, the
else.
story.
Yeah.
It all boils down to the story
Right.
and the performances.
Yeah.
But one thing that is happening now that's great, from our standpoint and from mine as well. Yeah, it's what Dave is saying is true. But what is also coming up is there's all these young former military men and women coming out of the military who are getting into the film business,
Right.
which is now unique. Where like schools like LA Film School has over 500 former military students in their film program, and other film schools as well. They form groups, Veterans in Film and Television, which is like 1,000 members strong. So you got this new wave of young men and women who, one, they got great stories because they've been in these situations,
Right.
but whatever field they're going into, directing, camera, whatever, they bring a work ethic and a leadership ethic to the film industry that's really great. And for us to have the chance to work with
Yes.
these young military veterans, it's been a pleasure. It's like,
Yeah.
you ask something to get done, it's done.
Right.
It's like, yeah, I love it. As a
Right.
line producer, I love it.
They do
Work
it.
ethic with these young veterans is amazing.
Right. That's fantastic. Gentlemen, we're at the end, if you believe it or not. I know. It goes quick, doesn't it?
That's when you're having fun.
Absolutely. But do want to give one last chance about getting in contact with you guys. I guess would Facebook be the best way?
Facebook, for me anyway, would be the
Okay.
best.
Okay. And then it's Dave Alspach, right?
Dave
Okay.
Alspach.
Dave Alspach and John Duffy.
John Duffy, there's other John Duffys, but obviously look for the film stuff. And if you go on IMDb, I'm the one who did Blood and Bone and you name it. 35 films, you can see my credits
Right.
there to be able to link up with me on Facebook.
Fantastic. And of course, we're linked up, so you can definitely go to the in-show Facebook and we can get connected there. Guys, again, thank you for coming in. Thank you for all your work. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, it was great, man. I enjoyed it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Hey, well, this is Gus Summers, and you've been listening to The In Show. And we had in-studio guests, Mr. Dave Alspach and Mr. John Duffy, and be sure to look for them and their upcoming projects, of course, on Facebook and all those wonderful social media sites. And visit us at theinshow.com, where you'll be able to find this link and find out about everything else that we are doing. And ladies and gentlemen, Gus has left the building.